this video, I'm going to be going over the top 3 best and worst sports card purchases you could have made in the year of 2024, and let's get right into it. So I'm actually going to be labeling these by an order of what I think is from 3 to 2 to 1, and I picked one per big sport, so one per baseball, football, and basketball. But these are going to be the top 3 worst purchases, okay? And coming in at number 3 is going to be Bryce Young, okay? So if you invested in Bryce Young, God bless your soul, because you are not looking good. But if you look at Mr. Bryce Young here, and we'll pull up his Silver Prism PSA 10 because this is a good indicator of his market, right? And look what this card was selling for all the way back when this card came out. So it was selling for around 300, a little bit more, a little bit less. And today, this card sells for 137. Now, it's come up a little bit. This card was selling for like $60 and $70 when he got benched. But the reason I think this is a terrible purchase and why if you have Bryce Young, just sell it, I don't think there's any upside, is because I don't think he's going to be a starter next year. So in these top 3 best and worst purchases I'm doing, I'm also kind of looking at the future. And not only is Bryce Young a bad buy because you would have lost over half your money, but I just don't think there's much hope. He's playing better now, but if he's not going to start next year, there's no upside, right? There's actually only downside. It's actually only going to go down in value. Now, he could start, but I doubt the Panthers will move forward with him. And, yeah, I mean, this is just ugly. Like, some people bought this card for over $400, and now it's worth $130. Like I said, it's come up a little bit. It was like $60, $70. But that is the 3rd worst purchase. The 2nd worst purchase coming from baseball would be Jackson Holliday. And once again, God bless your soul if you bought this man. So Jackson Holliday, he is the son of Matt Holliday. Matt Holliday was once a great player, I believe, for the Rockies and the Cardinals. And with that last name, Holliday, he gained a lot of hype and excitement. He was the number 1 prospect for a long time in the Orioles organization. And when he came up, it was a disaster. The Orioles called him up early in the year, and I forget what the exact numbers were, but he was like 1 for 30. It was terrible. And if you look at Jackson Holliday, so Jackson Holliday, if you bought him, so let's go to his like Bowman Chrome, like auto PSA 10. So if you bought Jackson Holliday, the reason I think this is a terrible buy. So this is Jackson Holliday's raw Bowman Chrome, the PSA 10. Won't load for some reason. And so you could see this card was selling for, honestly, upwards of like $250, like mid 200s-ish. It got all the way up to 300 as raw Bowman Chrome. And today, this card's worth about 130. So you would have lost like almost half your money. But once again, similar to the Bryce Young example, I just don't see much upside, especially baseball, because what happens in the world of baseball is it's very difficult to regain that hype and excitement. Like Jackson Holliday was selling for so much because there was so much excitement and hype around him. And now there's not, because he played and that hype has kind of died. So like baseball, not only do most players not perform up to expectations, it's like the worst of all 3 of the big sports. But my buddy and I always joke, or my buddy Dylan, the one that got me into sports cards, he always says nobody wants a player once they've been called up, because the hype's died, because everyone has this imagination that their prospect who they invested in is going to be the next Mike Trout when that never happens. And because Jackson Holliday's gotten called up, he's had a lot of at-bats. He started off pretty terrible. He kind of got a little bit better towards the end of the year. A lot of the hype has died. So for him to get back to where he once was, if you bought him in early 2024, you got no chance, most likely. So that's number 2. Number 1, capping off the worst purchase in 2024. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. Check this out. It's Wemby. Okay? Not saying Wemby's a bad player. I'm saying he was a terrible sports card purchase. So, check this out, right? So, Wembanyama, Silver, Prism, PSA 10, right? Let's look this up. Okay, so this is actually Wembanyama's base Prism PSA 10. The Silver won't load for some reason. So, check this out. In the beginning of the year, this card this is just insane. So this card is worth almost $500. And once again, this card was new back then, so it dropped down severely, a lot. And look what this card sells for $80 today. $80. And this card was once $500. And going back to what I was saying before, the reason I think it's a terrible purchase, even now, in my opinion, is because I just don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Because Wembanyama, the way his value is going to go up is if he becomes a winner and starts winning. And the Spurs aren't too good, and they're also in the West, which is just really difficult. So I just don't see much upside and only downside because of injuries. And if he keeps losing, his value is probably going to steadily go down. So these are the top 3 worst purchases you could have made in the year of 2024. Number 1 being Wembanyama, in my opinion, because the outlook on these guys, there just isn't much. But moving on to the top 3 best purchases in 2024. So this is an interesting one. So number 3 here, and this is probably not what you're expecting me to say, is Jalen Brunson. So number 3 here is Jalen Brunson, and let me show you on Market Movers why, and then explain to you my reasoning. So if you look at, for example, so Jalen Brunson's year was 2018. So Jalen Brunson, oops, spelled that wrong. Brunson, Silver, Prism, PSA 10. So if we look here in the past 365 days, you could see this card was once in the beginning of the year like 140, low 100s, 130, 140. And today this card's like 230. So you would have almost doubled your money if you bought Jalen Brunson in the beginning of the year. But the reason, the opposite of those guys I just showed you, like Jackson Holiday and Bryce Young, the reason why I think Jalen Brunson's great, well, where does he play? New York. And he's obviously very good. So I think he's a really stable purchase. And especially as the Knicks get a little bit better, and if they start winning for real, like getting to the Eastern Conference Finals or Finals, you'll see that go up because Knicks fans are absolutely insane, and they're a starved fan base and a starved franchise that's been losing for such a long time. And if he could bring something to New York, like a championship, he'll be an icon. So because of where Brunson is, I don't see much downside and really only upside, especially the outlook on the Knicks' future. So I think Brunson, if you bought him in the beginning of the year, great. I still think he's a great buy. Not saying to go and buy him. There's better ways to make money in sports cards than just buying Brunson cards and hoping they go up. But I like the outlook on these cards, and I still think just relative to other cards, they're really cheap. I think he can go down as an icon in New York, and $200 for a PSA 10 is cheap in my opinion. So that's number 3. Number 2, this one's kind of obvious, but Mr. Ohtani. So Ohtani has really, really solidified himself as just, I think he's the greatest athlete of all time in my opinion, but that's just me. But if we look at Ohtani's base Bowman Chrome PSA 10, so it's not up a terrible amount. Like you could have bought this card in the beginning of the year for like, 800, 700, 800 in that range. And now it's worth like almost 900. You could see it peaked at almost 1,000. This is just his base Bowman Chrome. But you could have got it around the beginning of the baseball season for like 600. And now it's up like 900. So you could have made like 50% on your money. But going back to kind of what I just said, I think the outlook on this is amazing. He plays in Los Angeles. He's going to pitch. He hasn't even pitched, right? He didn't even pitch last year. And he went up in value. And that's why I think Ohtani's the greatest athlete of all time. He's like a top 5 pitcher in the league, and he's probably the best hitter in the league as well. Just the value he provides to the Dodgers is just insane. It looks like the Dodgers are probably going to win a few more championships, and I think he will go down as the greatest athlete of all time just because no one's ever seen what he's doing before. It's kind of like Bo Jackson, but just within baseball. And what's different about Ohtani than Bo Jackson is Bo Jackson was a great football player, and he was a solid baseball player. Ohtani, for pitching and hitting, he's a GOAT at both. Like if Ohtani was just a pitcher, he'd probably be a Hall of Famer. If Ohtani was just a hitter, he would definitely be a Hall of Famer. And he's both. It's like you're getting 2 top 5 talents, but in one player. It's crazy. So I think Ohtani is just going to solidify himself more and more as time goes on. And also what helps is the Japanese have a lot of money. They love Ohtani. And for those reasons, I think the outlook on Ohtani cards are amazing. And I think if you bought them in the beginning of the year, towards the middle of the year, you've made some good money. But I really only see it going up, not down much. So that's number 3. Or that's number 2, excuse me. Number 1. And I know there's going to be people that don't agree with me. I know there's going to be people that do not agree. But number 1 would be Mr. Lamar Jackson. And let me prove and talk about my case before you guys start commenting and going crazy, right? So let's look at a 2018 Lamar Jackson Silver Prism PSA 10. So Prism PSA 10. All right. So this card's worth a little bit more money. So just as a random side note, the reason this Silver Prism PSA 10 is worth a lot, so the cards from 2018, like Prism from 2018, the silvers were extremely, extremely hard to grade. So that's why PSA 10s of like Josh Allen, who's from 2018, and Lamar Jackson sell for a lot of money, just random side note. But this card you could see was hovering around in the beginning of the year. One did 3,000, one did 2,000, 2,500, 2,000. So really in the beginning of the year it was like hovering around the 2,000 range. And there's not a lot of sales because it's a rare card, but the last sale of this card did 3,300. So if you bought it for 2,000, now it's worth 3,300. You would have made a little over 50% of your money. But once again, going back to what I was saying before, with these guys right here, is I think the outlook on Lamar Jackson is great. I think people still do not realize how incredibly amazing he is, and they won't until he wins the Super Bowl. I think when he wins the Super Bowl, those cards will skyrocket. And just to compare, so I actually haven't looked at this, but if we click compare here, I'm actually curious. Like 2018, Josh Allen, Silver, Prism, Josh Allen. Let's see here. Let's see if we can find any Josh Allen, Silver, Prism, PSA 10s. Josh Allen's were very hard to grade. Even harder than Lamar for some reason. I don't know why. All right. So check this out. If we compare these, and it's not showing up on the graph, but you can see there, right? Lamar's does the last sale did 3,300. The last sale of Josh Allen did 5,600. You're telling me, you're going to sit here and tell me that Josh Allen is almost double the quarterback Lamar is? Nah, I don't think so. And it's not like Josh Allen's won anything. Maybe Josh Allen's a smidge better, but I think Lamar is set up to win a Super Bowl. He will. I don't know when. I mean, the Chiefs are not an easy team to get through, but I think when he wins that Super Bowl, his stuff is going to skyrocket, and he doesn't get injured. He's very consistent on a week-to-week basis. So I love the outlook on it. I just don't think Lamar's going to come down much, and it's only upside from here because I think he's an all-time great quarterback. I think he's a top 10 quarterback that's ever played the game right now. I think he's better than Jim Kelly, Dan Marino. I mean, so is it too much to say he's better than, like, he's just as good as someone like John Elway? I know he hasn't won like John Elway, but in terms of just pure talent and what he does for his team, it's pretty close between all these guys like Allen and, Lamar and John Elway, guys like that. I mean, I would definitely take Lamar over like Dan Marino or something. So that's why I love Lamar as an outlook on life, an outlook with sports cards. But these are the top 3 best buys you could have made in the year of 2024, in my opinion. Brunson, Ohtani, and Lamar. And the top 3 worst ones, Bryce Young, Holiday, and I think Wemby. You're screwed if you bought his stuff early on. But honestly, this is just kind of a recap of 2024. Buying these guys and holding and trying to guess is not the best way to make money with sports cards. Take my word for it. If you want a good, solid, predictable way to make money with sports cards, I'll put a video somewhere around my head here, and that'll be a video on how to systematically and predictably make money with sports cards, because the reality of all this stuff, who knows, right? Who knows if a player's going to be good, bad. In the beginning of 2024, I couldn't tell you who was going to be good out of these guys and who would have been bad. I have no idea, right? It's just guessing, and you don't want to guess when it comes to making money. But hopefully you enjoyed this. If you are watching this and you have some questions, you could leave a comment, and I answer all the comments, any questions you guys have in the comments in a weekly podcast I do. But like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.